Hey everyone, Catch 'em All Collectibles here. In today's video, I'm going to cover a topic that I talked about in some recent live streams. I actually made a video about it over a year ago. Auctions versus buy it now. A lot of people will find themselves asking, what is the optimal way to sell my card? There's a fair bit of nuance in here, and there's a fair bit of luck. There's a fair bit of inconsistency in the prices realized. But overall, I would say that picking one, a lot of people will be, I only grade with this company, I only sell on this platform, I'm 100% buy it now, it's 100% auctions. Usually the answer is somewhere in the middle, some blend of both. You're never going to find the perfect blend, you're never going to sell everything at the absolute top, buy everything at the absolute bottom. But me personally, historically speaking, I've used both buy it nows and auctions. I would say that generally speaking, especially for the first 5 years, 2014 to 2019, I was more of a buy it now guy. I've been one to say a lot of times, buy the auctions, sell the buy it nows. Overall, I still think that applies. Generally speaking, the lowest buy it now on the market will serve as some sort of a ceiling. Why would someone buy an auction for more than you have lowest buy it now? People might shock you. People aren't super savvy, aren't price checking. They see a shiny object and they're buying. Money allergies, as I've talked about before, and just the way that eBay makes the whole search process a lot harder than it used to be. But anyways, where my mind is going into my business, like what goes through my head when I decide, do I want to auction this item or buy it now? In a very simplified way, kind of distilling it down, generally speaking, at least moving ahead, if I have one of them, if it's a one-off card, just a random PSA 9, PSA 10 of an alt art that I recently graded from a collection, I'm more prone to auctioning it. And again, another general idea, the more modern it is, the more high pop it is, the more liquid it is, usually you have a tighter buy it now auction spread. And the more niche, the more, the lower pop, the less commonly you see it sell. So say you compare an item that sells 100 times in a week versus an item that sells maybe 3 times in a year. So the more it sells, generally the auction buy it now are tighter. The less it sells, they might be very wide. I mean, I sell on my eBay every week. I'm selling some buy it now at double what the last auction was. Though those are few and far between. Those are more the exception than the rule, I would say. One thing we have in Pokemon, it's a very great, beautiful market. It is so liquid relative to so many other TCGs. It is not stocks. It is not fungible. One card is the same as the other. There's no such thing as a market price. I've said that before in a video. So you're never going to get it to where it's $100 every time, all day, every day, buy it now, auction, bid-ask spreads of 5 cents, 10 cents. We're never going to have that. But if you compare Pokemon to Yu-Gi-Oh!, Dragon Ball, a lot of these other TCGs, it is a lot tighter. It is a lot more liquid. You can throw an auction, and you can reasonably expect to get something. I mean, again, the components I talked about earlier, the more high pop it is, the more frequently sold it is, the tighter your buy it now auction spread will be. But yeah, one thing that I think, and I talked about this in my video over a year ago, 2014 to 2019, I was spoiled. I mean, 2014 to even 2021, depending on what card you're looking at, where exactly in the year you're looking when that bubble started popping. There was a tailwind. Most cards were doing this. I never know which way to point. Most cards were doing this over time. Slight tailwind from 2014 to 19. Most cards generally went up a fair bit over that time period. And if you list it slightly above market, the market will come up to you, and then your card will sell. So historically speaking, part of the reason that my brain is like trained to prefer selling buy it nows is because the first 5, 6, 7 years in the hobby, now it's my 10th year in the hobby, it was just being ingrained to me that, hey, this stuff's going up over time, and it'll sell eventually. It'll sell eventually. 2020, 2021 happened. Almost everything I had in my eBay, almost anything anyone had listed prior to 2020, 2021 would have sold out in that time. Auctions were setting record over record. Buy it now is like, the longer you held on to it, the better, because until it hit that top and then started going down. Then the longer you held on to it, the worst. But I've definitely had to shake a little bit. I've had to consciously shake, and back a year and a half ago, I made a video about how I auctioned a bunch of my PWCC vault stuff. I did a little bit of a test with Z&G Emporium and Old School Pokemon, some auction consignments. I auctioned some of my own items. I made a video maybe 6 months ago to start the year. I auctioned off a bunch of my own items. Actively, I'll talk about it at the end of the video, but I have an active eBay auction block going right now with some consignor cards. I have active PWCC consignor auctions that I will talk about the rates and all that later in my video. But yeah, I think definitely auctions are going to be more of a thing. Part of it is the carrying cost. Carrying cost of your inventory is always something you need to keep in mind. Your overall cash flow, your overall liquidity. Like, I'm not going to make this video and make it a sub 8-minute video saying, yes, you have to buy it now, everything, you have to auction everything. There's a lot more nuance, a lot more gray area. But generally speaking, I am shifting more and more to auctions. Part of that does have to do with the fact that I have certain minimum sales volumes that I have to do over a given year to maintain rates with certain selling platforms. So that's another thing. But yeah, if you compare the 5-year, 6-year window from 2014 to 2019, and then you look at like 2021 and beyond. So 2020, 2021 were wild times. Generally speaking, a lot of the stuff is kind of ticked down from there. Obviously, you've had your waifu boom of last May. You've had the crazy things that have gone on. Some things have absolutely gone up. But generally speaking, more stuff is like down from 2021. And over the next 5-year period, and especially over the last year and into the next year, it will continue being a trend. But barriers to entry have been being removed. I mentioned this on PokeFlips recently and on my recent live stream. The more barriers to entry that get removed, and the cheaper and easier all this stuff gets, the easier it is for people to submit cards to grading. PSA Vault, you send raw cards to the PSA Vault, they grade them, they auction them for you immediately. Nat Turner talked about getting things to auctioning within 24 hours. Sounds great. I mean, it will be great to an extent, depending on what you're doing in the hobby. I'm going to look into it. I'm going to use it to some extent. I'm going to trial it out. I've made many videos and talked about how I'm a one-man operation. But I lean on Troll and Toad Evo. I lean on PWCC. I lean on PSA Vault eventually, eBay Vault formerly. I lean on business-to-business transactions where I can offload the stuff that isn't worth my time. Not necessarily not worth my time, but not the best use of my time. So, I mean, depending on how you're interacting in the space, you might have several types of inventory, several maybe grading misses, maybe the big hits that are kind of above your capacity, what you want to sell on your eBay, your own risk tolerance. So leaning on other businesses to offload, I mean, fulfillment, storage, insurance, all that stuff, and having the ability to just sell more items due to having that outsourced labor. It is a great thing that I've used, so something I will continue to use. But yeah, as I was saying, the cheaper grading gets, and the quicker it gets, and the easier it gets to sell, the more prices are going to go down. And I think the next 3 to 5 years, as you have all these titans of industry buying out company after company, getting into the space, optimizing things more and more, I think it will just generally be, for most cards, I'm not saying everything's headed to zero by any stretch of the imagination, but generally speaking, I think there's just universally downward pressure on plastic. Given that PSA, check out gemrate.com. PSA is grading 1 million cards a month. CGC, BGS, XYZ, we always joke about. All these different companies are grading historic numbers of cards. All these, I mean, Pokemon and all these other TCGs and things, a lot of them are printing historic amounts of cards. So I think, generally speaking, the trend will be slightly down on most things. And auctions just get rid of the cards quicker. Depending on the card too, like if you're talking to Moonbryon, obviously over the past couple of months that card has kind of ticked down a little bit. Maybe over only the past month, maybe about a month ago it peaked 1,1600. And a lot of those cards, if you buy it now on one given day, they could be gone that same day. You might have to wait a week for an auction. You're never going to have the perfect thing there. But more and more what I'm trying to do is one-off items, auction them, get rid of them, move them on, especially auctioning them through where I'm not the one creating the listing. So when I create a listing, I want to get the best bang for my buck. I talk about it over and over, the PSA 10 Celebrations Charizard. One photo of one front of one card, or just pull the scan from PSA's website, I can sell 200, 300 PSA 10 Celebrations Charizard. over years on that one action, that one listing creation. 151 booster box, 151 UPC bundle case, booster cases, anything that is able to be bought in quantity and it's not a fungible thing, but it's more fungible. Certain things are more fungible than others. When you have a low mid-priced item that is just like a booster box, a booster pack is probably the most fungible item. Fungible just meaning like one is equivalent to another. Like the US dollar is extremely liquid, extremely fungible. One of the most fungible things. A stock of Apple. You don't care if you have this stock or that stock. They're both one stock of Apple, one share in the company. That is like peak fungibility. Booster packs are closer to that level of fungibility than like a random PSA 9 graded card. The older, the more expensive, the more niche, the more nuance matters, the more like, oh, how's the back look? How's the whitening? How's the corners? So generally speaking, the more fungible items, like a PSA 10 Celebrations Charizard, maybe a PSA 10 stamp promo, 10,000 pop plus, not this one, but the Celebrations Charizard, the Moonbreon, those are more fungible than others. I want those via buy it now. I want to play the game. I want to buy. I want to pay 5% to eBay to win sales. I want to be able to buy the consumer eyes and be able to sell them 5, 10, 20, 25% over market in quantity. Week after week after week, replenish them, sell, sell, sell. And if I have one, it's like one and done, boom, send it off to PWCC, maybe send it off to an eBay consignment service, send it off. More and more, that's what I'm trying to do. So I do have some exceptions. I will be showing my eBay in a little bit here. But generally speaking, that's my idea. My idea is to auction the one-offs, buy it now, the replenishable multi-quantity items. In my video before, I talked more, I guess I'm doing this with a fresh perspective on the buy it now. So same conversation with a fresh perspective. I more talked about like the seller considerations, the buyer considerations, but don't pigeonhole into, don't pigeonhole yourself into, I have to buy auctions, I have to sell buy it nows only, I have to grade with PSA, CGC, BGS. Overall, I would say like PSA is the place to grade your cards, generally speaking, but the people who only do that, like I sell black labels for massive premiums. I sell CGC pristines, albeit at lower sell-through, at lower liquidity. I sell them for high margins from time to time. And a lot of those type of plays that I want to have via buy it now, I've mentioned it before. I want to have those plays. I want to have those cards in every flavor. I want to have the black label, the CGC pristine, the PSA 10, hopefully nothing below that because hopefully I'm not missing my pre-grading. And yeah, those buy it nows that are replenishable, or those cards, those plays that are replenishable, I want them in every flavor. I want them on my eBay. I want them 10, 20, 25% above market with a 5% promotion to get those sold. And that's the way that it works. Another thing is for like the buying side, again, we're all interacting in different ways. I'll buy anything. I will buy anything. The moderner, the better. The higher pop, the better. The more liquid, the more near fungible it is, the better. I buy high-end slabs at 80%, knowing that I'm just going to auction them. And I trust in the market. I trust in Pokemon. If I buy them at 80%, the person that's selling to me, the nice thing they get a risk-free thing. They know exactly how much money they're getting. And if they were to auction it themselves on eBay, maybe they'll only net 85%, right? 15% fees, roughly 13% plus if you're paying on sales tax, if you're paying on an international sale, and then shipping and things like that, and having some amount of risk. Whereas selling it to me, it's a risk-free transaction. You know how much you're getting. You take the cash, you walk away. But yeah, that's more of a thing that I've been doing. I'll buy anything as a business. I'll buy anything I can make money on. Generally speaking, higher end slabs, 80% is what I'm paying. So feel free to reach out if you're interested in selling, or feel free to reach out if you're interested in consigning. You're taking on the risk of maybe the auction will perform more poorly, but you also have the upside of maybe if it's an item that sells for more than $1,000, you're netting 92.5% of that selling through me on PWCC. But yeah, let me go to all. I've just been talking to camera. I don't do a ton of these videos where I'm talking to camera more, but I will do that from time to time, and let me actually show you some information now. So sorry, I don't have this set up properly. But this is the Moonbreon. This is Umbreon 215. This is the alt website alt.xyz. And just to show you what I was talking about, generally speaking, buy it nows, I mean, someone just binned one for $14.57, while another buy it now went for $1,300 and auction went for $1,300. This person with the buy it now $12.50, they must have wanted to get rid of it quickly. Obviously, you got a couple auctions there slightly lower. But, I mean, anyone can show you. I could show you 100 data points where all the buy it nows are higher, and I could show you 100 data points where all the auctions are higher. Generally speaking, again, as I said, the buy it nows go slightly higher. But a big consideration that I talked about before, talked about on PokeFlips, if I'm going to have an item as a buy it now, low list buy it now, or 5%, 10% above with a promotion, if the card is going to go down and to the right, and the card might be 50% lower, even 20, 30% lower in 6 months or a year, you would have been better served just auctioning it day one, right? I've found that from time to time. Again, the barriers to entry coming away. If you think, generally speaking, over the next short to medium term, the card is going to go down, auctions might be more right for you. And overall, I mean, there are exceptions, absolutely, but I think the exceptions are the exceptional cards, the top 1 to 5% of cards maybe, that will go up in the next 2 to 5, 10 years. I think most labs, though. I think most labs, for the reasons I said earlier, cheaper, faster grading, more accessibility, less barriers to entry. A lot of these things are super high print run. But most labs go down over time. It's just a fact of the world we live in. It's a fact of this stuff. Most cards go down over time. I mean, most cards. And you're going to, like, yeah, I'll just continue on. So there's the Moonbryon. One thing that I wanted to add too, if you look within a given time frame, I do have my PWCC rates below. Feel free to reach out if you're looking to consign. On items such as this, selling for over $1,000, you would net 92.5% of the total sale price. So the way PWCC works, I don't love it. I actually hate it, if I had to be honest. Hammer price is the sale price, and then they add 20% to that. So I am taking all in hammer plus sale price, hammer plus buyer's premium for the total sale price. You are being paid out 80, 90, 92.5, 95% of the total sale price with hammer. So if you, I've had a lot of people reach out to me, but one thing people ask me too is like, oh, PWCC, are the prices as strong there? Again, I could make a video and I'm not going to be that guy. I'm showing you every Moonbryon sale on all for the past X amount of time. Here's an auction on eBay, same day, 1,508 on the Moonbryon. $140 higher than an auction on PWCC on the same day. Oh, but what's this? Another auction on the same day on eBay. So PWCC fell right between these two. $1,400 on eBay, $1,508 on eBay, $1,440 on auction at PWCC. It was the $1,508 cleaner? Was the $1,400 more off center? Was the $1,440 right in between as far as centering, as far as overall card quality went? It's impossible to say. Only a 10% window between the low auction and the high auction for that day. That's a really tight window. That's a really tight window in such non-fungible, no market price items like cards. So that's a really tight window. Here's another day. One card binned, buy now or best offer at $13.99 on eBay. It auctioned at $13.25 on eBay, $13.15 on eBay, and $13.50 on PWCC. So this is the type of card that I'm more comfortable sending to auction, either on eBay or PWCC. And I'll give you another example of a card that I'm very comfortable with again. So this is the half art Mario Pikachu. Sorry I don't have it set up where you can see the card itself. But a lot of these are fairly tight. I mean, 1,400 is our low here that we're seeing. Our highest is 1,680 that did happen on PWCC. But all the cards falling between 1,400 and 1,680, I mean, that's a window of about 20%. Some people would say, oh, the card's up 20%, the card's down 20%. No, the price is just somewhere in between with a plus or minus of 10, 15, 20%. Like, people get way too, here's 2 data points. Let me draw a straight line between them and extrapolate. These things don't have fixed market prices. These things are non-fungible. Some are cleaner, some are worse looking than others. Old certs, new certs. There's so many factors that go into what an individual card sells for. But overall, like PWCC, falling right in line with eBay. So if anyone has any hesitation, I mean, you don't have to use the service if you don't want to. You can sell on eBay. You can sell wherever you want to. Heritage, Golden, Rare Candy. There are all these selling platforms out there. I think eBay overall is the biggest. eBay overall does the best for the most things, but PWCC is right up there with the more liquid, especially the more mid-high end PWCC has certain pros to it as far as people being able to pay with crypto. And will eBay ever get there with some of these integrations and things that PWCC has built in? I'm not entirely sure, but I guess we'll have to see. They did add the eBay vault. They did add the upcoming PSA vault that does allow people the same way on PWCC to avoid paying sales taxes by shipping, fulfilling to their vault. So they do have that benefit that they've gained in the past year over something that PWCC used to have a leg up on them. So eBay's kind of more leveled the playing field there. But yeah, half out Mario Pikachus, they're all in the same vicinity. You see a buy it now in one day, kind of beating the auctions by a handy margin. But a lot of these cards are right all in the same vicinity. Here's the full art Mario Pikachu. I don't know what's up with this buy it now. I actually looked at it. It doesn't seem like it was a real transaction. Alt hasn't booted it. It's been 2 weeks. But that's just something we have to deal with. We have to deal with some of these muddied up transactional histories. We have to deal with that. That's the issue with just pure comp culture. That's the issue with just taking everything as gospel. Oh, this is a comp, so this is the set price. How real all these are. So one thing that I'll add to, just because an item is sold doesn't mean it was paid, and just because an item was paid doesn't mean it was an organic transaction. Unfortunately, there are bad actors in this space. It is very cheap through certain consignment services, through certain, eBay Vault you could sell for free. So absolutely, there were some amount of people inserting bad sales prices into the history to muddy up the waters, to kind of move prices this way or that way. It's the exception. The vast majority, I would say, of price history that you see, comps that you see, are probably legitimate organic transactions, but you do have to be wary because there can be malfeasance going on. There can be bad history being inserted. But yeah, you see the spread. You see, generally speaking, I specifically remember some of these transactions. I specifically selling a couple buy it nows on, I think these two were me back in March, $5,300 each on eBay. And then only a week or two later, $6,600 on PWCC. I think that one would have been paid because I don't believe they make it to all. I don't believe they make it to PWCC sales history if they're not paid. So, but these things are widely varying. When you go to auctions, that's one thing I'll add to. Auction versus buy it now. Auctions are inherently more inconsistent, more widespread, more risk because, well, I guess depending on how you define risk. Auctions are more risk of not knowing what you're going to end with. You might end above your expectation, you might end below it. Buy it now has more risk of you might not sell the card, right? Like, you know, if you sell it, you will know exactly what you're going to get after fees and all that. You can just do the math. I'm going to list it at 1,000. Well, through Dan on PWCC, well, that's auctions only, but say I'm going to list it at 25,000. Sell it through Dan's buy it now eBay auction, buy it now consignment service. You know you're going to net 95% of that. Say you're going to sell something for $100,000. If it sells, I'll get $95,000. But if I auction it, I don't know where it's going to end, but I know it's going to sell unless it goes unpaid. Like, there's a lot there. There's a lot there. I'm already over 20 minutes. I could talk for an hour here, but I'm going to try to expedite this. Celebrations Charizard. This is one of the cards that I have 20 in stock most of the time. I always have more in the backlog at PSA. I always have more in process. These are the cards that, like, $75 buy it now. I don't think that's real. But these are the cards that I want to buy it now. I want to sell at a premium. I think I'm selling mine right now on eBay at like $185 while auctions are ending $169. Are these 200s real? I have no idea. Some amount of them maybe, some amount of them maybe not. But generally speaking, cards like that, I do have some of those out at PWCC to test how they do. But you can see the sales volume is a lot higher overall on eBay. That is one thing we do know too. I don't know why I have a Spanish Unlimited Charizard pulled up there. Here's another example of like a very high pop card. The Ancient Mew, another card where a little bit tighter. So it's high pop. It's less modern. It's more vintage, but it is still very high pop. A multi-million print run promo. It has a lot of high sales volume, high liquidity, and generally speaking, I mean, the lows here to the highs are kind of like 200s up to 400. So that's where you have a double the minimum is kind of what the maximum is. That the card is not doubling and halving. The range is just high. The card is worth 300 plus or minus 30-40%. Like, it sounds crazy, but that's the way these markets work. And when you go for auctions, you're going to see more of that ebb and flow. But overall, as long as you're making money, like, keep track of what you're doing. Try to buy a bunch of cards, grade them, flip them. don't look at each individual card. Some people beat themselves up too much on like, oh, well, I paid 50 for that card raw, I graded it for 15, and I thought it was going to auction for X, but it went a little bit lower than I expected, and I lost money on that card. Well, how did you do on the whole collection? How did you do on the whole submission? As long as you're making money overall, and when you start auctioning in high volumes, I actually recently sent to my PWCC about 500 cards that I had returned from various PSA, BGS, CGC, and I don't look at the individual cards. I have a mental note on like roughly what all that's worth, and I'm just going to chuck it. They're going to fulfill it. They're going to do all the work, same way I could do for you, and I could net you more than you would get on PWCC, and I'm going to get a payout at the end. And if I'm expecting 20 grand and I get 25, great. If I'm expecting 20 grand and I get 15, recalibrate, try to figure out what I've got going on. And but overall, generally speaking, I should have a good idea. Things should be falling about where I expect, as long as I'm sending the proper stuff. Here, another card, CD Promo Charizard. Another card that I'm pretty comfortable auctioning. Yeah. If you only have 20 items in your eBay store, here's another consideration. Say you only have 20 items in your eBay store, and you only have to track and maintain 20 buy it nows. That's a lot less tedious than if you have 2,000. If you have 2,000, it's more likely to get away from you after 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. You can't remember every card you have at buy now. If you auction that stuff and keep the number more manageable, you can think like, oh, hey, I just watched a recap video. I just watched a PWCC batch of auctions end. I watched D&G Emporium auctions end on eBay. Oh man, I have that card listed at 1,500. It just auctioned for 1,000. Maybe I should lower my buy now to 1,100 to get that thing sold. If you've got 2,000 cards, way harder to manage, way harder to do. If you've got 20, 50, 100, more reasonable that you can stay up to it. So there's no right or wrong answer. Auctions and buy it nows both work. I use both. I kind of covered in this video where and when I use both. Here are some of my eBay buy it now listings. Higher end, hard to replace, impossible to replace type cards. Some of these are consignments, some of these are mine. But yeah, like the Art Academies, I'm not getting another one. If or when I ever sell them, I'm probably never getting it back. I'm probably going to be done. It'll be one and done over with that card. So those cards I buy now. Someday, Liquidity, if I need the cash flow, maybe I will auction them. I think they do fine relative to like what the last solds were. But I'm trying to sell them at a decent premium because some of these cards, I'm the only one listed. But yeah, generally speaking, the less reproducible, the more one-off, higher-end stuff that I feel is like niche, that you need to wait for the right buyer to come along. This card actually recently just sold. It is on consignment, but this PSA 10 Porygon, Fan Club Porygon, that just sold at 4,600. I think the recent auctions were like 4,000 or slightly less. And that is an example of a buy it now really outperforming. What would it have auctioned for? We have no idea. We'll never know. I'm actually going to pause really quickly. So sorry for that. I did want to pause really quickly because I made that sale at 4,600, and then the next day an auction at Golden only did 30.50. Before that, an auction at PWCC a couple months ago did 44.40. An auction last year over 6 months ago did 32.40. So to have that buy it now sell for 4,600, I mean that's just, again, it's a one-off. It doesn't mean buy it nows are universally better, but in this instance, I mean, I sold that for my consignor at a hefty premium to what the recent sale was. So yeah, buy now auction, you kind of decide what is right for you. There's no universal best answer. And one thing I did want to show here at the end, I do want to show, here are the rates. So PWCC, eBay, I do offer buy it now eBay consignments. I do offer auction PWCC consignments. Here are the rates. Feel free to email me, contact me through the contact form on my website. However you want to reach out to me, Discord, Instagram, I'm everywhere. I take DMs. I'll find your message wherever you send it to me. But I do want to highlight, so I probably will do a short to highlight this as well. But I have my first featured collection on PWCC. So probably 20% or so of these are consignor cards. A large portion of these are my cards. So a lot of these cards I bought at 80% of market to just flip it onto PWCC and see how I do. Maybe I'll make a recap video kind of covering what I paid, what they sold for. I don't know if I'll get into the nitty gritty of that. I just kind of have a mental note of how many dollars I sent into this auction, and we'll see how I make out. But yeah, go check out. I will post a link in my link tree somewhere. This is a featured collection. So this is a filtered auction where you can actually search by my items. If you go on to PWCC and you go to weekly auction 127, you can actually click the Catch 'em All Collectibles filter over here. So I have this ending on June 23rd. This is my first featured collection, and I will be doing one featured collection a month moving forward. And the way that it works, every second Sunday of every month. So this month, it's the third Sunday, only because it's my first month doing it. I didn't have time to get in for the second Sunday of the month. But every second Sunday of every month moving ahead will be the end date of my featured collection, filtered collection. So July 14th, just to name a couple of them, August 11th, September 8th, and so on. If you want to consign with me, try to get the cards in at least a couple weeks before that Sunday, because PWCC runs 10-day auctions. So you need to be at least 2 weeks before the end date, obviously. Ideally, closer to 3 weeks before the end date, because it is a 10-day auction. It is a week-and-a-half auction by itself. You don't send to me. You send directly to PWCC. They do turn things around really quickly right now. So, yeah, these are some of the items, though. If you're interested, I'm really interested to see how this card does. This is the kind of card that, like, one thing that auctions do, too, kind of adding things in. I don't know how many people are listening 30 minutes later, especially when I start doing a little bit of self-promotion for my my consignment service. But this is the kind of item where you might list a buy it now, and people don't have the sense of urgency, because they think like, wow, that's a really high price, that's a really cool card, but I might wait on it. Once you create an auction for such a unique, such a scarce, such a hard to find card, and this card is a consigner card, it is the highest graded. I believe there's no PSA 10s in this card. There are so many issues with this card out of pack. You'll have so much edge chipping. You'll have so many issues. I pack pulled some of these first appearance cards out of the Topps Movie 2000. And PSA 7s, PSA 6s out of the pack. Like, very, very hard to find a clean one. So a CGC 9.5, very, very hard to find card. If you want it, if you want to have that very high-end, super clean copy, it is a, I'm going to pause again really quickly. So I really wanted to make sure that I didn't misspeak there. So this is the first appearance Pop Report at PSA. Not only as PSA 10 Lugia, Pop Zero, all of them are Pop Zero in PSA 10. I wanted to make sure I didn't misspeak saying that CGC 9.5 was like a top pop and then have it be like, oh, there's actually X amount of PSA 10s. I did want to go right to the PSA Pop Report and verify that. So again, sorry for another pause, but you've got a 96 Bandai Card-Ass Pikachu Prism. Really, really nice card there, consigner card. You got the PSA 10 Venusaur and Charizard. You got some Altards. You got some Mario Pikachus. You got all kinds of great stuff. Gold stars, booster packs. One thing that PWCC allows too, I'm actually going to send my uncut sheets there, I think. Sealed product I can consign. Reach out if you want to consign sealed product. Graded booster packs, PSA Vault or eBay Vault didn't used to take. I don't know if the PSA Vault will take it. I imagine if they won't at the outset, I'd imagine eventually PSA Vault would sell PSA graded booster packs, but I'm not 100% sure on that. You got some black labels. You got some CGC 10s, CGC 10 Pristines. You got all kinds of stuff going on. So yeah, check out the filter if you're interested. Feel free to check out my website for information on the consignments if you're interested. Some world stamped promo cards. I actually threw a champion stamp of my own card too. Where is that one? Somewhere there's a champion stamp actually. I believe 2014. Yeah, right there. You got a 2014 champion stamp PSA 8, currently sitting at $5. Hopefully it does a fair bit better than that. But yeah, that's everything I had. It was a lot less structured than my usual videos are. Usually I have more bullet points. I guess I didn't expect this was going to go 35 minutes. I expected it to be more of a 15 to 20 minute thing. Let me know your thoughts below. Am I completely off base? Is buy it now the only way to go? Is auction the only way to go? There's pros and cons to everything. As always, certain things are best for my PWCC consignment service. Certain things are not. And I think, generally speaking, the more liquid, the newer, the higher pop it is, generally the better it will do at auction, whether eBay or PWCC. But I think PWCC really excels more in the higher end, mid-higher end. And that's personally what I'm sending towards it. And any card above $5,000, I'm actually paying out 95%. Any card above $1,000, I'm paying out 92.5%. And any card above $100, I'm paying out more selling your card on PWCC for you than you would get if you directly sent to PWCC yourself and paid the public rates. So yeah, feel free to reach out if you're interested. I appreciate everyone watching as always, and I will catch you all later.